भारत का बजट विश्व जो आशा की किरण देख रहा है उसे वो और अधिक प्रकाशमान नजर आए।
हम दुनिया की 10वें नंबर की अर्थव्यवस्था से 5वें नंबर पर पहुंचे।
I rise to lay on the table a copy each of the following papers, Hindi and English version: Economic Survey 2022-23.
Well, the budget session of Parliament began with President Draupadi Murmu's address to the joint sitting of both houses. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman will present the union budget tomorrow, the 1st of February. This will be the last full budget before the general elections in 2024. It shall also be the last budget presented in the current Parliament building. The key message of the economic survey this year ahead of the budget is, and I quote, "The recovery is complete." This is the first economic survey since the start of the Russia-Ukraine war. It's also the first survey authored by the current Chief Economic Advisor, Anantha Nageshwaran. The survey highlights that India has moved on from its encounter with the pandemic. It projects real GDP growth of 7% this fiscal, 6.5% for next fiscal, with a range of 6.68. The survey also warns that entrenched inflation globally may prolong the monetary tightening cycle, keeping borrowing costs higher for longer. The survey says the government is on track to achieve its stated fiscal deficit target of 6.4%. I spoke with the CA Anantha Nageshwaran, the author of the economic survey. He told me there is no reason to believe that the government will deviate from the fiscal consolidation path. Given the fact that we have emerged and are resilient, and we're now talking about resurgence at this point in time, how important will it be for the government not to deviate from the fiscal glide path that has already been projected in the government?
There is no reason to believe that the government is deviating from the fiscal consolidation path, and we will see the signs when we all see the budget tomorrow. But important point to note is that India's public debt ratio hasn't materially increased in the last 15-16 years as it has happened in advanced nations. And we also show in the survey in Chapter 3 on the fiscal situation that few years of steady nominal GDP growth will cause a meaningful reduction in the fiscal deficit parameters. So yes, fiscal deficit consolidation is important, but more than the headline, what matters is the quality of government expenditure, and that has improved quite a bit, both at the union government level and at the state government level in the last several years. The share of capex has gone up. We have a chart on that. The share of revenue expenditure has come down, and therefore we need to work on both on the quality front, and I would even say quality front is more important than the headline deficit ratios, because India's debt sustainability is not in serious doubt. It is important to continue to make improvements in terms of efficiency gains from public expenditure, and also qualitatively improve them in terms of creating more space for ourselves in terms of social welfare spending, development spending, etc. And that would come from some of the asset monetization plans that the government has. But in general, given the demographic advantages we enjoy, and given the fact that India's nominal growth by and large, except in the last few years because of the pandemic and before that the balance sheet problems we faced, nominal GDP growth has run ahead of the cost of borrowing for the sovereign, and that if it continues as we expect, fiscal parameters will improve quite meaningfully in the years to come.
And you can watch the entire conversation with the Chief Economic Advisor Anantha Nageshwaran at 9:30 p.m. right here on CNBC-TV18. But on to the day's market action. Caution on the Lal Street ahead of the union budget. The Sensex gained nearly 50 points. The Nifty also managed marginal gains. Banks and mid-caps outperformed. The Nifty Bank Index gained over 250 points, and the Nifty Mid-Cap Index gained nearly 500 points. But the big story, the 20,000 crore rupee follow-on public issue by Adani Enterprises has gone through, with bids coming in on the last day of the three-day issue. The QIB and the H&I portion of the issue were oversubscribed, leading to the overall issue crossing the success threshold. Yash joins us now to wrap up what has been a fairly volatile last 3 days as far as the Adani Group is concerned. The largest FPO to date going through. Yash, what details do we have?
Well, Shirin, most part of the action as far as subscription is concerned came on day 3, that was today, as it was indicated by the Adani management, and also similar was the situation in the market. The understanding was that Adani Enterprise FPO will sail through, but it will need strong support from institutions, and that's exactly what panned out. As far as the overall FPO is concerned, that received subscription of 1.12 times, as you said, crossing the success threshold. Looking at category-wise subscription, the QIB, or the Qualified Institutional Buyer book, that received subscription of 1.26 times. The total number of shares offered here were 1.28 crore. Demand was received for 1.6 crore shares. Nearly 80% of the QIP demand has come from FIIs. Now, the most important and the strongest portion as far as subscription is concerned, HNI, or high net worth individuals, that received a subscription of 3.32 times. Bids more than 10 lakh rupees received subscription of 5 times. Less than 10 lakh rupees received subscription of just 2%. Almost the entire HNI demand came from the large HNIs. We've been speaking to some of the sources, and what we've been given to understand is that family offices of some large Indian conglomerates said to have participated in Adani FPO. CNBC-TV18 has written to some of these large family offices. We are still awaiting a response from them, and it was the support from these large family offices also which gave you this subscription number of more than 3 times on the HNI section for Adani FPO. Talking about the weak sections of subscription, retail was just subscribed 12%. It was the Hindenburg report which sort of overpowered the mentality of retail investors. Employees subscribed 55%. Now, there were 2 conditions for Adani FPO to go through. One was 100% subscription of the QIB portion and 90% of the subscription of the aggregate book. Both of these conditions were met on the final day, which sort of enabled Adani Enterprise FPO to go through on the last day of its subscription.
All right, Yash, many thanks for joining us. And speaking of the Adani Group, Norway's sovereign wealth fund, which is the second largest fund in the world, has cut its stake in the Adani Group companies. The CEO of the fund says the index weight of its exposure to the Adani Group has been cut from $800 million earlier to nearly $200 million as things currently stand.
We have, over the last few years, sold down our exposure to the group. And now these numbers change all the time because the stock market moves are so dramatic. But last time we looked, which I think was yesterday, the index weight of those companies would be roughly $800 million. We had sold down a large proportion of that, and we were at roughly 200. So massive underweight position. They would be things like, well, potential corruption,
environmental damage,
human
rights, labor rights.
Yeah, range of issues.
While the Norwegian wealth fund cuts its stake in the Adani Group, the sell-off in the Adani Group stocks has led to wealth erosion of Chairman Gautam Adani. The billionaire has slipped out of the list of the world's top 10 richest persons. As per Bloomberg Billionaire Index, Adani's wealth fell around $34 billion in the last 3 trading sessions. He has fallen from the 4th spot now to the 11th position. The International Monetary Fund's latest World Economic Outlook report says India remains a bright spot amidst a slowing global economy. It projects India to be the fastest growing economy in FY24 at 6.1%. The fund sees global growth slowing further in 2023 amid some signs of resilience and reopening of China. It also says the fight against inflation is starting to pay off. Former Chief Economic Advisor K.V. Subramanian, who's currently the Executive Director at the IMF, said India has never been an outliner both on growth and inflation in the past 3 decades that he's been tracking the economy.
I think India at 6.5% would be definitely the positive outlier, combined with an inflation outlook that clearly seems to be, in a comfortable zone. I think I don't recall the last time, at least since I've been tracking the Indian economy for 30 years, when India was the positive outlier on both growth and inflation, and such a positive outlier. So I think things look good.
Well, that is the former chief economic advisor. On to earnings corner. Sun Pharma's numbers largely in line with estimates. Revenue and net profit beating street estimate. Margin seeing a marginal miss. On a year-on-year basis, the company reported robust growth across all categories, with both revenue and EBITDA clocking double-digit growth. It wasn't just domestic growth. Sun Pharma's US sales grew more than 6% year-on-year, with global specialty sales rising more than 20% versus last year's figures. Coal India has beaten street expectations on all fronts due to higher power demand. Its third quarter net profit came in at over 7,700 crore rupees. That's a little above what was expected. The company's revenue stood at more than 35,000 crore rupees. That's against the expectation of 34,300 crore rupees, while EBITDA margin came in at over 29%. Coal India also declared a second interim dividend for FY23 at 5 rupees and 25 paise per share. Indian Oil Corporation reporting a weak set of numbers in the October-December quarter as its net profit and operating margins missed street estimates. Net profit came in at nearly 450 crores, lower than expectations of over 3,200 crores. Operating margin came in at 1.8% against expectations of 3.8%. However, the company's third quarter revenue of more than 2 lakh crore rupees did beat street estimates. Global earnings. Fast food chain McDonald's reports topping Wall Street's estimates for Q4. Earnings on the back of higher footfall. Revenue at $5.9 billion versus expectations of $5.7 billion. Net income coming in at $1.9 billion, up from $1.6 billion in the previous quarter. The fast food giant is expecting short-term inflation to continue in 2023. A stellar show from General Motors after it beat expectations in Q4. Despite a margin squeeze, the company's revenues for 2022 came in at over $156 billion, while adjusted EBIT came in at a record $14.5 billion. That's not all. General Motors has also guided for a strong 2023. Exxon didn't disappoint either. The company raked in a record profit of $56 billion for 2022, underscoring the windfall for big oil after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. However, Q4 has seen a slight slowdown as fuel prices retreated from recent highs. Production was up by about 100,000 barrels of oil and gas per day over a year ago to 3.8 million barrels per day. Back home, Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister Jagan Reddy has said that Visakhapatnam will now be the new state capital. Speaking at the International Diplomatic Alliance meeting in Delhi, the Andhra CM said he will also shift to Vizag. Harish Upadhyay has more.
The Andhra Pradesh government has decided to name the city of Visakhapatnam or Vizag as its capital. The decision also puts an end to the proposal of having Amaravati as the capital of Andhra Pradesh. The announcement comes nearly 9 years after Andhra Pradesh was bifurcated for the formation of Telangana state. In fact, there has been a lot of controversy over finalizing the capital city for the state. In fact, Jagan Mohan Reddy government has accused the earlier Chandrababu Naidu government of indulging in large-scale corruption in the formation of Amaravati as the capital. Although the announcement has been made, and Jagan Mohan Reddy has also said there will be an investors summit held in March in Visakhapatnam, the politics is unlikely to die down anytime soon. Harish Upadhyay for CNBC-TV18.
Vodafone Idea's board has approved the preferential issue of optionally convertible debentures worth 1,600 crore rupees to ATC Telecom Infrastructure. This after the telco missed its payment deadline. The board said it will convene an extraordinary general meeting on the 25th of February to seek shareholders' nod. Mines and Minerals major Vedanta has shelved plans to sell its Sterlite copper smelter unit in Tamil Nadu. The plant that was shut due to environmental concerns accounted for almost 40% of the metal production in the country. The company has now decided to work with the local population to restart the plant. The Financial Services Institution Bureau has recommended the names of N. Jagannath and Tablesh Pandey to take up the posts of managing directors at Life Insurance Corporation. The final appointment will be approved by the Cabinet Appointment Committee. Currently, the insurance behemoth has 4 MDs, 2 of whom are set to retire. We will head into a break, but up next, Surat's textile sector urges the government